My name's Tim Metcalf and I'm the Executive Officer of Jigsaw Whanganui. Jigsaw exists to support families be really great for their children. And for children to thrive, they need a family environment that is safe, that is warm, that they can grow and develop. That's basically why Jigsaw exists. The other part about it is working very, very clearly to uphold the mana and dignity of the families we are privileged to work alongside. Probably now we meet a lot of families that are isolated and isolated from wider supports. So-called blended families. We have a lot of engagement with as families that are responding to serious abuse and violence. We often responding to is families where either the parents or the children have complex health and disability needs. And so we have one team which is our intensive home-based social work team. So they work alongside families with quite complex needs. And then we have our social workers and schools team, and they work alongside the families that belong to 23 low decile schools across Whanganui and Martin. And then we have our parent learning and support team, and they run our parent programs. We have a range of parenting programs. And then we have our family harm programs team, and they run programs for people who use violence. And
it's looking at how to be aware of healthier relationships, better ways of conflict management, awareness of the social and cultural and historical effects or impacts on people's lives if they're using violence, identifying different tools and techniques so that they can get to a place where they aren't using violence and that they can contribute to being better partners and better parents.
Our young people, especially our young men, are not taught how to manage really big emotions. Part of our job is to give them those tools and to recognise that it's okay to be angry, but it's what you do with it that counts. You know, anger is okay, but violence is never okay.
I think what our program does, and it's been described well, is somebody holding a mirror up towards somebody's face. Sometimes the mirror is held up very close, so either looking at themselves and the effects on themselves. Then sometimes the mirror goes further out, it looks at the wider impact on their whānau, family, the community.
So we're really looking at how they grew up, what life was like for them, how they were parented, because often they will carry on that cycle. And so part of that process of really homing in and looking at that often will be the first time that they've realised that actually not everybody has grown up in the same way, and it's not the norm.
It's an opportunity kind of for deep introspection for a lot of the men that come through, and we also provide some support after that to kind of like maintain some of the learnings that they might have achieved through the course.
Building relationship with the whānau is really important. We work alongside families to make sure it's as easy as possible for them to come along, remove some of the barriers, or help support them to remove the barriers. And we really get to know them and what they'll need in that space to be at their best. That's a really big part of the group process as well. We don't meet whānau with an intention or an expectation. It's really to get to know them and to understand what's happening for them first. I think there's some constructs in New Zealand that coming along to a group, experiencing a program that you've got a deficit or that there's something wrong or you need to fix something, and that's not at all what we hold. Making it really clear that they have a lot of strengths and they have a lot to bring to the group that's really positive and to share with other people. And that's why we're getting together, not because something's wrong or they need to fix something within themselves or within their whānau. Everyone comes along because they love their tamariki and they want the best for them. And really we just help to hold a hurutanga or a safe space so that whānau have the chance to reflect on what they'd like to strengthen.
We are in a really unique role as intensive home-based social workers in that we do work within a whānau home environment, and that sets us apart from other social work kind of roles in our community. And really it's a real privilege and a real honour to be working with our whānau and seeing the changes, the transformational changes that they're making. I think one of the big things for us as social workers is to understand the context in which whānau are living in, and then for us to be responding authentically to that.
I think the benefit of being in people's own homes is they're the most comfortable within their own homes, and we get a real good picture of kind of how they are living their lives. And you know, when they're talking about different aspects or their kids, often we've met the kids, so we know who they're talking about, what they're talking about.
You know, it brings a greater understanding of what are their resources, what are the strengths, and often it's strengths that whānau aren't even aware that they have. Often we, as we said, we're working in those spaces where there is vulnerability, and we may be meeting somebody where for the very first time they've reached out outside of their own whānau social support networks. A big part of our work would be around response-based practice, and so that really looks at shifting the responsibility back on as the person using violence. And in that way, how we shift that is when we're working with someone who has experienced violence, that while they're telling their story, we're actually helping them and supporting them to reframe it in a way that acknowledges their resistance to violence. So when we're hearing their narratives or their accounts of violence, what it means is that they are an active participant of stopping the violence. And it's something that we continue to hold in conversations with, not only with the whānau that we work with, but with also different agencies, systems, like you've got police, oranga tamariki.
I think also there's a big advocacy role in there, because often we see that, you know, some of those survivors of violence do get lost in the system, so it's about supporting them to have their voice heard.
The ethos or Māori of Jigsaw is kaupapa whānau. So what that basically means for us is that how we are together as a team is how we would want any of the families we are privileged to work alongside to be. So the way that we support and care and back up one another, the way we stay connected with one another, that's really important.